An art conservator's job would be immensely more difficult without the possibility of sharing their experience. There are conferences and meetings held regularly around the globe. Today, a specialist in textile conservation from the Metropolitan Museum of Art, Dr. Florica Zaharia, is visiting the Pushkin Museum.
I'm very pleased to be here at the Pushkin Museum today to continue the collaboration with our colleagues at the museum. We have quite a history in our professional relationship, and this is just another opportunity to continue it.
The art restorers from the Pushkin Museum have visited the well-equipped laboratory of the Metropolitan Museum of Art on many occasions.
You're seeing here the lab as we are having today. Not always have been like this, but since 1995 we are using these exceptional facilities equipped with state-of-the-art analytical equipment and facilities so we can perform our work at the best possible condition existing today. We work with objects from the European collection, American collection, Asian, Northern Africa, so it's a great variety from all time periods. That means the lab has to respond to work on the smallest possible fragment, maybe the most fragile archaeological piece, or now to 10 meters wide tapestry or carpets. What is very important to us, even before we are starting the treatment, is to understand the object. Analytical work, investigation work, it's extremely important. That's why we're equipped with various at various levels to respond to, with the equipment to respond to understanding the structure, to seeing the structure of a textile, to understand the fibers, the materials it's made, an object is made of, and understanding the dyes, pigments, if that's the case. So all this is a conservator's job. We're responsible not only for the treatment of the object, determining its condition, performing the treatment, also we prepare the object for display. We coordinate the installation of an object in the museum galleries, maintaining the object during the exhibitions in the museum, or installing it also in other institutions. They're borrowing our collection for temporary exhibitions, and preparing the object for storage as well. So it's a whole package. We cannot see our work just limited to one aspect of the museum work. An example of how we use this information, currently we have an exhibition focusing on the textile materials. It's part of a series of exhibitions. It happened to be at the present at the Met, an exhibition focusing on the plant fiber. So here is an example of one of our text panel that is included in the exhibition, and we're looking again at the type of fibers and various aspects of its morphology. Microscopic images captured with our equipment are included in the labels, so the public and the researcher, if that's the case, could be getting closer to the structure of the object and understanding its construction, even understanding the way the threads are made by spinning, by splicing in this case.
One of the main principles of a professional restorer's work is minimal invasion. It is important to stabilize the piece to be able to exhibit and store it safely.
And we have of Egyptian linen sheets from the burial chamber of Ramoses at Hannover. They are displayed in the museum galleries in the same way they were found. Usually we don't fold our textiles, but this is the original folding, and we rather don't undo it, but give them the proper support so they could be displayed without damaging them, but giving to the public the information, the original information that they carry. So we actually build a certain support for the individual sheets, so they're keeping the impression of being stored on the top of each other, but actually they are displayed individually. And this is the display the museum conservators came up with in the 80s when the Egyptian galleries were opened in their modern aspect that they continue to exist today. Another example of the fragile materials that we have in our collection could be, and again an example of a minimum intervention, could be this reflected in those images, archaeological materials for which we create a special storage format, again respecting the information they are carrying it with them, creating a level of storage so they could be protected, they could be also removed for their storage, displayed if necessary, or investigation could be performed without touching them, without intervening in any way. An exception of this kind of approach exists, and this is one example of a group of materials. They are from an early time period, approximately 8th century. This kaftan was reconstructed. Fragments of it exist sufficiently, so we could come up with the original format. A new material was tested, of course, and prepared in the lab, and the fragments were consolidated and stabilized after stabilization on the new material, so they could be a condition permit to be exhibited in a form, in the shape that would have been originally.
In the 20th century, there was a different approach to conservation. A good example is a burial shroud similar to the one in the Pushkin Museum. It was very well preserved. However, there were fragments in need of strengthening. The method that was used at the time was affixing the canvas onto a new base, in this case linen. Luckily, the current condition of the shroud is adequate. This is how it's going to be exhibited, stretched on the frame and of course protected with glass.
What we did recently, we only improved the stretcher mount material, the mount materials. As we know, this has happened permanently. The conservation materials change, the market is changing, so material that would have been good years back, wood and other materials that we preferable not use today. So those kind of changes could be made, but we prefer to leave the art when it's stable without intervening. So this is a fortunate situation. Another material of the same type, a small fragment, but very important fragment for us, is this painted again on linen. It's fragmentary, but the fragments are in stable condition, so we choose to display them on a support board created with appropriate and tested materials. The fragments are simply sitting on the support board and displayed at either horizontal level or at a very slight, on a very low angle slanted board. There are exception pieces that are fragmentary but in good condition, could be, and this desire to be displayed at the vertical level could be mounted. During the previous decades, one of the methods was to stitch mount those pieces. We don't prefer this method, we don't use this method for this type of materials any longer. We prefer to mount them without intervening too much at their level. So the type of method we use, the type of mount we use and we develop in the department, we call it pressure mount. It's a little bit deceiving. It's not exactly the pressure, the object doesn't suffer much pressure because of the construction. It's made in such a way that the thickness of the fabric, it's supported between a cushion of soft materials and the plexiglass that it's used on top to hold the piece together. It's all based on conservators' experience and development over the years. Method continue to be improved, and it's used today worldwide by other conservators. So we are very proud to share this method with other people, with colleagues from other museums.
This experience of storing and exhibiting can be very helpful for the Pushkin Museum's conservators, just like their work was quite interesting for Dr. Zaharia.
The Pushkin painted shroud is a very interesting piece from many aspects. The condition of the fiber and condition of the paint, it seems to be a little bit in a contradiction. The fibers are very fragile, the paint is very well preserved. Identifying, and they did a wonderful investigation work recently, so they understand all this. It's very important to understand the relationship between the two components, and from here, how do you preserve them, and how do you prepare them for display. One of the challenges is condition, the other challenge is dimension. It's a large shroud, it's a large piece in a fragmentary condition. Some fragments are very small. You need to preserve them, you need to display them to let them be part of the object. And how do you stabilize them within the context of the entire piece? That will be challenging.